Hey ladies, welcome to Single Moms United podcast. Hey, if this is your first time joining, welcome. If you are a repeat listener, thank you for your loyalty. Hey, I'm going to jump right in today with our topic, and I'm still on the letter I. And if you've been following me since the beginning of the year or longer, you know I've been extracting words from the letter I and trying to align it with parenting skills. And so today's word is interviewing. So I'm pivoting a little bit from where I was as it relates to really directing, as it relates to your parenting to your child or your children. But if you are looking for a job and you have that ability to go out and work, which is an awesome thing, then I just want to talk a little bit about that and helping you prepare for your interview and looking for a job, because it's important. If you have to work, then be happy to do it. Unfortunately, if we're not set up the right way in our approach to go after a specific job, more than likely we're probably not going to stay there long. And if we are there, then we're probably going to be miserable most of the time because it's not really what we want, but we're doing it because we need money. But here I hope to share with you how to identify that role that aligns with your personality, and also give you interviewing tips as you're engaging, as you get that interview, and really try to set you up for success. I mean, that's what this episode is all about. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but hopefully you can extract some of the thought processes that I'm delivering to you and say, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Or, this is right on time. I have an interview in 2 weeks. Or, you know what? Maybe I need to think about these jobs I'm applying for and really make sure it makes sense that goes with my personality. So that's my first point, and actually I think I have about 3 points. One is interview preparation, how to respond to questions that you're being asked, and you asking questions. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one, and I'm probably going to spend quite a bit of time there. Thankfully, I guess, I've been on both sides of the table. I've been the interviewee and I've been the interviewer, right? So I was able to see some things and take notes of some things of people that did really well in interviews, because unfortunately, that is my weakness. And thankfully, I don't have to worry about that anymore because I will be retiring soon. So I don't have to worry about going through the interview process. Whoop, whoop. But anyway, for you all that do, and still, hopefully, something is going to be said that is going to help you prepare. All right. So the first thing you need to understand as you're looking for a job is make sure the job description matches your personality type. And there's 2 personality types. One is introvert and one is extrovert. Introvert means you're kind of a private person. You're okay if somebody doesn't talk to you. You're okay with working alone. You're okay with being over in the corner by yourself doing your thing. You're okay with that. That's an introvert. I'm an introvert. I work best as when you give me things to do and say, hey, go do it. That's how I work. And I'm successful at it. If it's that type of role where I just have to focus on getting the job done, then I'm able to focus on that, unlike an extrovert. An extrovert, long story short, is a people person. They got to be around people. They enjoy being around people. They feed off of that energy from being around people, and they like to be out front. And in a past episode that I did with you all, if you're struggling with, am I an introvert or an extrovert, picture yourself in the newsroom. Okay. So you have people in front of the camera, but you also have people behind the camera. And for the sake of this exercise, the people behind the camera are introverts. The people in front of the camera are extroverts. So if you think of it that way, do you prefer to be behind the camera or do you prefer to be in front of the camera? And that's how you go about looking at these job descriptions. If you got to present or do sales, that type of thing, then that's an extrovert job. But if it's doing like data analysis, data entry, special projects, a specialist, that's probably more of an introvert role. When you look at these roles and the job descriptions, just make sure you're honing in what these folks have to do or what this job consists of, because it's going to make a world of difference later on. We talked about introvert and extrovert, so now you need to do your research on the company you're applying for. Just not only look at the job description and the role of the job. Who is this company? How long have they been in business? These are things you want to know, because if it's a startup, just be leery of that, because some things aren't very settled yet. They're still getting their feet wet. But when you're ready or get that call for the interview, here's some things to take into consideration as far as your style and preparation. Number one, when they call you for that interview and they set up a time, be on time. Be flexible with timing. Things may have to change, and try not to reschedule. I remember I was interviewing some folks for a role that I had. I ain't gonna lie, it kind of irritated me when they asked to reschedule. And it's like, well, you're really not serious about this role. But that's just me. Dress conservatively, right? They always say wear blue or black. Why is that important? Because it's toned down and you don't want to be a distraction. You don't want to wear bold colors or prints. Now they can become a distraction. So they're not listening to your responses. They're focusing on what you're wearing. And so you don't want to create that distraction during the interview process. Ladies, when you're wearing makeup, just kind of keep it neutral colors, because remember, makeup is just designed to enhance your current features. If you have eyelashes, then put a little mascara on versus putting actual lashes, because again, they can become a distraction. I do recommend, if you have tattoos, try to cover those up, because again, you're not paying attention to me if you're looking at my tattoos. And so try to cover those up, mask them, maybe put some makeup on them or something like that if they're on your hands or your arms, or just wear long sleeves. How about that? One spray of perfume. You don't have to get in it and splash around in it, just one spray, because again, if they got allergies or whatever, you don't want them sneezing through the entire interview process. Try to wear knee-length dresses or skirts. I encourage you to wear lip gloss versus lipstick, because sometimes lipstick can come across too bold, where lip gloss is a little more laid back and not as prevalent as lipstick. I also encourage you to do a mock interview. And here's the thing, if you say, I don't know who would do a mock interview with or how that works. Well, here's the good news. Here's the good news, lady. If you go to singlemomsunitedpodcast.com, send me a note and say, hey, I would love to do a mock interview. And I'll be happy to try to work with you, because I want you to be successful as well. When you get in the interview, be specific with your answers and concise. Try not to ramble. Again, that was one of my issues as I was interviewing. I always found myself rambling. So try to just be as specific as possible. Sometimes you'll have to write things out, kind of rehearse it a little bit, but definitely do not go in at being scripted. It's like, okay, I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to a script, not a person. Try to be specific and concise as it relates to your experience and your skill set. Now, how to respond to questions that you may get. The standard, once the interview is complete, the interviewer will say, do you have any questions? Please don't say, no, I don't have any questions. It comes across as you really don't care. You're just going through the motions. And we'll get to some of the questions you can ask in a minute. Don't respond with I don't know much about the company. Again, that suggests you didn't research anything. Again, I just sum it up. You don't care. I'm just going after this job. And when you don't care, longevity with the role is pretty much going to be non-existent. Or you're going to get frustrated along the way because you didn't do your research. If they say, you have any weaknesses or things you're working on? And you say, nope, I sure don't. That illustrates arrogance because we all have weaknesses. We all have things that we need to work on. Mine is patient. Mine is being a better interviewer if I was still interviewing. We all have weaknesses and we need to respond. Yes, I do. And I'm working on that. And I'm hoping this role will help strengthen me in those areas where I'm weak. Never say you were fired from your last role. Better is the previous role ended unexpectedly. And that's absolutely fair because it did, right? Try to avoid saying I'm looking for a job right now. Better is I'm looking to use my strengths and I'm excited how this role aligns with that. Avoid saying I'm not great with time management. Better is I use this tool to stay focused. Once upon a time, we used to have planners back in the day, but now you can just use the calendar either on your laptop or your phone to help you better with time management. And thank God for reminders on the phone. I guess I'm at the age now where I definitely need reminders. So I'm thankful that that is built in on phones now. Please avoid saying I don't have any career goals. Better is my short-term goal is to excel in this role. And long-term, I aim to grow my strengths. Long story short, we want to definitely put a positive spin on our responses, whether we're able to accommodate or achieve what they're asking for, or we don't have a good example. Just make sure you put a positive spin at the end of what your goal is and how you're responding to that, okay? Because again, we're trying to set you up to get the job. We're trying to leave a positive impression on the interviewer. All right, so what questions should you ask? I tell you, as an interviewer, one of the biggest things that impressed me the most about the candidate that really moved them up on the scale of being considered was them asking me questions. You know, even if they didn't answer all the questions quite right, which is fine, but when they came back and was asking me things, yeah, I was very impressed because that means they did their homework and this is more than just, let me try this job. Let me see what happens. So here are a few questions you can ask the interviewer because now the tables have turned. You're in the interviewer seat. Think about that. Now you're in control. Think about that. And I remember when I was the interviewee, and I'd be so nervous and everything. And I know I just flubbed up the entire interview. But then when it came down to time for me to ask questions, all of a sudden my shoulders reared back and I was sitting up straight and all the confidence level that just went to the top. I was just like, oh yeah, I got this now. Now let me ask you a few questions. I sure did. But let me get back on the highway. See, y'all done got me. But anyway, your confidence level does increase when the tables are turned. So here are a few questions you can ask the interviewer. Number one, what opportunities are there for cross-training or learning new skills? We shouldn't just come in with the skills that we offer, but we also should be able to learn new skills. What training do they offer to help you build those skills? Number two, what are the biggest challenges facing the team or department right now? So when you get there and you get hired, you see there's a backlog of work. How did that backlog of work get there? Yeah, and then next thing you know, you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed. Nobody told me this. So that's why you ask up front. And most employers are going to be honest with you. Hey, we lost X number of people. Now we have to rehire. As a result of losing these people, the work got backed up. And so now we got to hire people to try to clear all of this extra backlog work out. And that's fair. So when you get hired, you're coming in knowing that there's a lot of backlog work that needs to be cleared out, and you're going to be responsible for that. So you shouldn't feel overwhelmed because they set you up and they responded to this. And guess what? Had you not asked that question, they probably wouldn't have told you. I'm just being honest. I'm because remember, they're interviewing you to see if you have the skill set that matches the role. Not that, hey, yeah, we are backlogged because of, we lost quite a few people, or they're introducing a new product and they don't properly know how to staff for this new product rollout. Again, these are questions you need to ask. Now, third one, what would you want the key achievements to be in the first 6 months of the role? That's a fair question. Where do you hope I'm going to be? And in this role, what's the achievement look like? Do you have any grasp of that? And depending on how they respond, right? If there is no response, that's something you need to think about. Yeah, because in 6 months, and especially if this hiring manager has been there for a while, they should know what the plan is in 6 months. And if not, that really tells you something about their leadership skills. All right, number 4, how does the company support work-life balance for its employees? That's a big one, ladies, because you're a mom. And so your child is going to get sick. You're going to get sick. There's going to be unexpected things that happen. And you need to know how that company feels about work-life balance. Or they're going to want you to work overtime. And you got a child or children at home. And that's not going to allow you to work overtime. So what does that look like? One of the things with the company I work for, they have flex schedules, which I think are wonderful because now, depending on what's going on, you can take part of your day off or take extra time or do a split shift, do a few hours in the morning, come back later and do more hours. Or if you got time on the weekends, you can make the time up. That's work-life balance. That's the type of job you want, especially with kids, that you can make it up so that you don't have to take PTO. So actually, ladies, I would move that to number 1 on my list of questions. That's important as a mom with kids. And if you're doing it by yourself, then you definitely need to know what the work balance life is like with the job. What does day-to-day responsibilities look like with this role? Yeah, I know what the paper says, but can you share with me from the time I get here until the time I leave what the job looks like? What are the expectations with this role and responsibilities? Because remember, you're going to be evaluated, ladies. And some evaluations are monthly. And I think with new hires, they do like 90 days training on the job, training, that type of thing. But you're going to be evaluated. So I need to know what my responsibilities are up front, right? And I know they're subject to change. But what are the basics? What's required of me to do this job effectively? And finally, is the company active in the community? And that's called CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, where these large corporations have to give back or be visible in the community. And so I hear you, well, what difference does it make? Well, generally when they do CRA, it's a lot of volunteering that occurs. And I know with the company I work for, they went into schools, they went into homeless shelters. They've done a lot of those type of initiatives When you're volunteering, you're learning new skills and you're also networking. So if you're trying to go to another level, this is your opportunity to network with other folks in the business that you may not even interact with on a day-to-day basis. And you're acquiring new skills depending on what it is and what needs to be done. You're learning, and you should always be learning because you're more than a mom. You're a mentor, and you can pass this along to your kids. All right, so those are just a few of the questions I would ask during the interview process. And thank God this is a podcast where you can hit rewind. So if you didn't get it all, you can hit rewind or playback or whatever the term is these days to pull out these questions again so you can take note of them. One other thing to help you be successful in your interview, if you have any type of supporting numbers as it relates to things that you've accomplished, please include them in the interview, even if they don't ask you. You know, at the end of the interview, they always say, you have any questions or comments? That's your area to do your summary, to sell yourself of who you are. I work for this particular company for this amount of years. I was able to do this. Here are some of the numbers as a result of what was accomplished. You know, the company started off with XYZ number, and as a result, my skill set, I was able to reduce that number, but also always try to incorporate numbers. That's always impressed me, and it's always helped me when I did get the job to impress those folks that I was interviewing with. So always try to include numbers. Also, don't forget to thank them for their time. Be sincere about that because it's important. They probably had a whole list of candidates and you were chosen out of that entire list of folks for them to talk to. So you definitely want to thank them, and you might want to position it that way. You know, I know you had many others you could have interviewed, but I thank you for taking the time to allow me to interview with you and share my skill set. And you can use that. During your interaction, make sure you're honest in your responses. Why is that important? Because depending if you're offered the job and you get the job and you embellished one of your responses on your skill set, and it's time to get in there and do the job, and you're like, uh-oh. Be honest. Just be honest. For example, I think I'm pretty good with Excel. I can do some things. I can do formulas and things like that. Now, am I really fluent with it? No, but I'm pretty good with it. And one time I was in an interview. The hiring manager asked me about pivot tables. I was like, what's a pivot table? I was honest. I'm not familiar with pivot tables, but I'm pretty fluent with Excel. And so if I could just get a little push in the right direction, I think I can learn it fairly easy and implement it into the role. The key is I'm willing to learn. And since I'm already halfway there by knowing Excel, this is just another feather in my cap to understand what a pivot table is. Be honest. And if it's linked to Excel, then I'm sure I should be able to jump right in, figure it out, or if given a little push in the right direction to get us where we need to be to make sure I meet expectations when it comes to this role. All right, ladies, there you have it. So if you are interviewing or plan on interviewing, I recommend you tag this episode and go back and play it before your interview to help you prepare. Again, it's not about how you arrive at the single mom title. It's what you do with it. Because society says we have to be on welfare. We have to be on public assistance. No, ma'am, we don't. How do I know? When I had my kids, I worked the entire time. I didn't get any public assistance. I could have, but I chose not to. So although I'm a single mom, I said, I'm going to go after and work for a living. I'm going to make sure my kids see me out working, because you know why? They're watching. They're paying attention. And so when they see me go to work, then later on in life, they're going to go to work. They're going to go out and get into the workforce. But they have to see positive role models, positive examples. And if they're not seeing that, then how is that encouraging them to go out and get that job? All right, moms, I'm getting off my pedestal now. Now, next week, come back. I'm going to have another I word. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to come back. And also, if you haven't spent at least 1 hour with your child by putting your phone on mute or putting it down, putting it in another room, I encourage you to do that. Spend some time with your child. Build that relationship, because this world is something else. And they need you, Mom. They need you. And guess what? You need them. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That hug you give them, it comes back to you as well, right? Because at the end of the day, we're human. We are human. And just like they need it, you need it. Have a great day, ladies. Take care.